The Oval Office was thick with the scent of victory, or at least, that's what President Trump wanted to believe. The air was heavy, not just with the aroma of expensive air freshener, but with the weight of recent triumphs and the expectation of more to come. The room, bathed in golden afternoon light, seemed to hum with the energy of a man who believed he was on top of the world. The reality, however, was a little less fragrant. The sweet smell in the air came from a luxury diffuser perched on the resolute desk, a small but telling symbol of the president's taste for the finer things, and his desire to mask any hint of trouble. President Trump, fresh from announcing what he called a historic trade deal with the European Union, was riding high. Cameras had flashed, headlines had been written, and for a brief moment, it seemed as if he had bent the world to his will. He relished the spotlight, basking in the applause of his advisors and the attention of the press. Then, his phone buzzed, slicing through the moment. The name of a trusted aide flashed on the screen, a routine interruption, or so he thought. With a confident grin he answered, fully expecting another round of congratulations, maybe even a new opportunity to boast about his latest win. But the voice on the other end was hesitant, almost apologetic. The aide's words stumbled out, clearly delivering news that hadn't been rehearsed, news that didn't fit the script of victory. "Get to the point," Trump snapped, his patience already thinning. He didn't have time for uncertainty, not today. The point, as it turned out, was a bombshell. Canada had just inked a massive aluminum partnership, not with the United States but with the European Union and a coalition of powerful Asian economies. The deal was bold, strategic, and unmistakably pointed. The news landed like a lead balloon, sucking the air out of the room. For a moment the president was speechless, blindsided by a move he hadn't seen coming. His face darkened, jaw clenched. This wasn't just a trade deal slipping through his fingers, it felt like a personal betrayal, a calculated snub from a neighbor he thought he could strong-arm. Canada, the neighbor he'd just put on notice with tariffs and tough talk, had quietly gone behind his back. The message was clear. They were no longer waiting for American approval. The new alliance was designed to bypass the American market entirely, rerouting billions in trade and leaving the U.S. on the outside looking in. It was a bold move and it stung. Silence settled over the Oval Office. The president's mood shifted in an instant from the heights of triumph to the depths of fury. The room, once buzzing with energy, now felt cold and isolating. This wasn't just about aluminum or trade statistics, it was about respect, about power, about who got to set the rules. And in this moment, Canada had shown him none. The call ended abruptly. The president slammed the phone down, the sharp sound echoing through the silent office. "They dumped us," he muttered, disbelief and anger mixing in his voice. The words hung in the air, a bitter admission from a man unaccustomed to being outmaneuvered. For a man who prided himself on walking away from deals, this was a bitter pill to swallow. The tables had turned, and now he was the one left behind, watching as others made moves without him. The world was learning to play his game. Hardball, high stakes, no apologies. But now, someone else was changing the rules, and the president was no longer the only player at the table. The celebration was over. The trade turmoil had just taken a very personal, very Canadian turn, and the Oval Office, once a stage for victory, had become the scene of a presidential meltdown. To understand Canada's move, let's rewind to early 2025. It was a time of anticipation and uncertainty, with the world watching closely as political winds shifted across North America. The stage was set for a dramatic change in trade policy, and few could predict just how quickly things would escalate. President Trump returned to the White House with a big economic stick: tariffs. His administration wasted no time signaling a new era of aggressive trade policy, determined to reshape America's economic relationships with its closest neighbors and the world at large. On day one, he slapped a 25% tariff on goods from Canada and Mexico, a welcome-back gift no one wanted. The shockwaves were immediate, as businesses scrambled to understand what this meant for their supply chains and bottom lines. The message was clear: America First was back, and it would be expensive for everyone else. Allies and rivals alike realized that the rules of the game had changed overnight. Soon, executive orders unleashed broad tariffs on steel and aluminum worldwide. These weren't just symbolic gestures, they hit at the heart of global manufacturing, threatening to upend established trade flows. The logic was simple: protect American industries by making foreign metals pricier. But the reality was far messier. factories faced sudden cost spikes and markets reacted with confusion and volatility, the intended protection quickly gave way to widespread chaos. Tariffs fluctuated wildly. One month everyone paid, the next only China faced 145%. The unpredictability made it nearly impossible for companies to plan ahead, and many were left guessing what tomorrow's rules would be. Businesses everywhere faced constant uncertainty. Small companies struggled to absorb new costs, while larger firms debated whether to pass them on to consumers or cut jobs. The anxiety was palpable in boardrooms and shop floors alike. By summer, tariff threats were flying. 30% on the EU, 50% on Brazil, and rumors of even higher rates for other trading partners. The global economy braced for a wave of retaliatory measures and escalating trade wars. New taxes landed on dozens more products, creating a tangled web of regulations and paperwork. Importers and exporters alike found themselves buried in red tape, with costs mounting at every turn. The EU caved, agreeing to a 15% baseline tariff, better than 30%, but still a blow to European exporters. It was a reluctant compromise, made under intense pressure to avoid even harsher penalties. But Canada faced a looming 35% threat if they didn't deal by August. The stakes were higher than ever, and the clock was ticking for Canadian leaders to find a solution. This negotiate with a gun to your head style pushed Canada to the brink. The pressure was relentless, and every option seemed fraught with risk. Decades of stable US-Canada trade vanished, replaced by anxiety. The once busy border crossings grew eerily quiet, and uncertainty seeped into every corner of the Canadian economy. For Canada, whose economy is deeply tied to the US, that anxiety became unbearable. The Canadian dollar wobbled, factories slowed, and experts warned of a looming recession if things didn't change. They needed a plan B. With so much at stake, Canadian leaders began urgently searching for new partners, new strategies, and a way to protect their economy from the storm brewing to the south. For years, the US was Canada's #1 aluminum customer, a simple, profitable relationship. But 2025 shattered that trust. The problem: unpredictability. Imagine your biggest customer suddenly threatens to pay half price or not buy at all. How do you plan? That's where Canada found itself, unable to predict the future thanks to sudden tariff threats. Prime Minister Carney signaled Canada wouldn't be bullied into a bad deal. The US's pressure tactics backfired, pushing Canada to seek stability elsewhere. Canada's decision wasn't spite, it was survival. They needed partners who honored agreements, not threats. The EU and Asia, also tired of US unpredictability, were happy to offer that stability. Canada didn't just wait, they built a new alliance. The Great Aluminum Alliance brought together Canada, the EU, and key Asian powers. The US was left out. The deal created a new supply chain connecting Canadian aluminum directly to Europe and Asia. Aluminum now flows freely to Germany, France, Japan, and South Korea, bypassing the US. Members get stable supply, free from US tariff threats. This alliance insulates its members from American economic pressure. It's a direct challenge to America first, proving countries can prosper without the US. Canada and its partners have called Trump's bluff. The US is now left out in the cold. For decades, American manufacturers relied on Canadian aluminum, cheap, close, and reliable. Now that supply is rerouted to Europe and Asia. US industries, cars, planes, construction, even soda cans, face higher costs and shortages. The tariffs meant to protect American jobs could end up destroying them. Higher costs mean higher prices or layoffs. America's reputation as a reliable partner is damaged. Global trade runs on trust. The US has become unpredictable. The Canada-EU-Asia alliance is the world's answer. Build new networks, leave the US isolated. With every new alliance, America's economic isolation grows. The consequences are just beginning. While US companies scramble, the new alliance celebrates. Canada swaps one unpredictable customer for a group of stable, long-term partners. This diversification brings stability and protects Canadian jobs. The EU wins too, especially carmakers like Audi, who now have a secure aluminum supply. Asian nations like Japan and South Korea also benefit, strengthening their supply chains. They can bypass US-controlled trade routes and avoid political risks. The alliance is a counterbalance to US power. It's a declaration of economic independence. Middle powers working together can rival a superpower. The message to Washington: build walls and others will build bridges. In global trade, being part of a network beats standing alone. The world is moving on. The new alliance is shaking up boardrooms worldwide. For multinationals, predictability is everything, and tariffs have thrown that into chaos. Companies built around the North American market are scrambling to adapt. Audi, for example, now has secure aluminum for its European factories but faces higher costs in the US. Electronics giants like LG must rethink production plans as raw material costs rise. Every decision now comes with new trade-offs and risks. Even companies investing in the US like TSMC face higher costs for steel and aluminum. The hidden cost of protectionism, it hurts the very companies America wants to attract. Tariffs may look tough, but they make the US a more expensive, less competitive place to do business. The world is rethinking its strategies. These global moves hit home at the checkout counter. For Americans, the most direct impact is higher prices. When companies pay more for aluminum, you pay more for everything from soda to cars. Expect price hikes on canned goods, beer, and tinned vegetables. Big-ticket items, cars, appliances, home materials will see even steeper increases. It's a hidden tax on families already struggling with rising costs. Reduced competitiveness could mean fewer choices on store shelves. Some foreign companies may even abandon the US market. The America First policy could leave American shoppers last. The cost of isolation is real, and it's paid at the register. This isn't just a squabble over aluminum, it's a shift in global trade. The battle over this seemingly simple metal is a microcosm of a much larger struggle. It's about who will control the future of manufacturing and economic power. For decades, the US was the center of the economic universe. Its factories hummed with activity, and its ports were gateways to the world. The American dream was built on this foundation. Now, Canada, the EU, and Asia are building a new multipolar system. They are creating alliances and trade routes that bypass the traditional American dominance. This new order is more interconnected and less reliant on any single nation. Trump's tariffs were meant to show strength, but they've isolated the US instead. These policies have backfired, leading to strained relationships and economic uncertainty. Old allies are forging new partnerships that exclude America. These new agreements are reshaping the global landscape, leaving the US on the sidelines. For US consumers and companies, the future means higher prices and more uncertainty. The cost of goods is rising, and businesses are struggling to adapt to the new reality. The US is now at a disadvantage in key industries. While other countries innovate and expand, American factories are closing, and workers are left in limbo. The promise of America First is colliding with the reality of America alone. The vision of a self-sufficient nation is proving to be more challenging than anticipated. The world is moving on, building bridges while the US builds walls. As other nations collaborate and grow, America's isolationist policies are leaving it behind. The game has changed, and the US must decide, adapt, or be left behind. The choices made now will determine the future of American influence and prosperity. The new rules are being written, with or without America. The world is moving forward, and the US must find its place in this new order.